Why hello there. This is the video on how to upgrade the ETC Ion from the original motherboard, either with one VGA and a dual DVI video card, or dual DVI out on the back of the motherboard, to the more modern ETC Windows 7 consoles that can run Windows 7. So the first step is going to be disassembling the console. This is my custom bench Ion that is heavily modified to be testing different motherboards and system configurations constantly. So there are no screws in this unit, but you should start by removing the screws that are under here. There could be a black cover over these two metal strips depending on your configuration. If you have one of the wings that goes onto the console, you'll want to take that off first, then remove the other black bumper to the point where it looks like this. Then from there, just remove every single screw you see along the side. Just don't remove the screws that are for the power supply or the DMX card yet. Once you remove all the screws correctly, you should be able to just slowly pick up and slide off the front. You may have to flip it up, but it should come off fairly easily. Because this is my bench Ion, it's missing some of the cables. But in a normal Ion, you will see 4 cables coming off of the control board to the main logic board. The first cable you will see is for the power button. Go ahead and unplug that from the motherboard. You will also see, what should be here, is a power cable that runs off the SATA interface. And you will also see a little black cable. That's actually just carrying USB for the front panel. Then the last thing, which you may have to take off to get it to flip up like this, is a ground connection. Make sure you keep track of all those screws and pick this whole unit up and set it aside. Now you are into your ETC Ion. Then from there, you will want to remove the screws that are along the top of here and pull off this cover and set it aside. Now you are at the main logic board. This is where stuff starts to get interesting. There, I moved the camera a little bit closer so now you can see the board better. So, in a normal, non-mine Ion, you would see a DMX card that goes here. You can see that it's missing out of here. Believe it or not, the DMX cards that are found in here are actually just little Nomad pucks. And they operate the exact same. So, if it were normally here, you would have 5 cables to unplug. This cable right here, also called a SATA, typically used for hard drives, and that should just pull right out of the back of the card. Then from there, you will also see another cable that is USB. It looks like a motherboard header, something like that right there. And that'll just be connected into the board, and you can just pull that up and out. And the last 2 connectors are going to be for the light that goes on the side. There is one with 3 cables on it. That is for the dimmer, I believe. And then the one with 2 is for the XLR. Then the last one is for the serial style port that's back here for additional accessories. From there, I think there's 3 or 4 screws that hold it down. Just unscrew those using a standard Phillips head screwdriver. Unscrew the screws back here, and the cold carts just slide right out. From there, remove the hard drive. This is the old mechanical hard drive that is very prone to failing. To do this, just simply use a pair of tweezers or pliers. There will be little nuts here, and just unscrew them. Once they're unscrewed, pull out the SATA data cable. Oh, that's right, these are not called SATA, they're called Molex, right? And the Molex power cable that goes to the old hard drive. This is your old ETC hard drive. You can go ahead and actually plug this into a standard Windows or Mac computer and pull the files off of it. Granted, before starting this, you really should have backed up your Ion, but just in case you didn't, you can still plug this in using a standard computer to SATA adapter to back up all the files off of it. Put that to the side, you'll end up throwing that out. From there, let's disconnect the rest of everything from the motherboard. Starting with the SATA cable that's right here. There's a little pin, you push it, and it'll just pop right out. From there, also take out the main motherboard power cable. It's very big and hard to miss. There's a little tab on it, you push the tab, and just wiggle the connector out, and it should look something like that. From there, the last connector, or cable you'll have to remove, is the CPU power cable. There. Push the little pin on it, and pull it right out. That's a 4-pin power connector. If I missed a cable, just go ahead and remove it. You don't have to unplug this gray cable right here. That goes to the fan. From there, go ahead and just remove every single screw on the motherboard. I have the original VGA and dual DVI video card version, so you'll also have to remove the video card and the screw that is back there. Just undo the screw and pop the video card out. If you have one of the later Ions that has dual DVI, I don't believe that card's in there. From there, just unscrew everything. There is a screw right there, 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 and I believe one that goes back there and there. I have half of them removed just because I replaced this motherboard so much to build the custom upgrade kits, because this is the Ion that I test everything in. So I rarely put the screws back in because I'm just taking them out anyways. So just using a standard Phillips head screwdriver, remove all of the screws that you see on the motherboard. If you remove all of them and the motherboard's still not coming out, you probably missed one. Once all of the screws are out, the motherboard should just lift straight out. You might have to move the cables out of the way. And just like that, you have removed your old motherboard. You're halfway through the conversion. Now, with this old motherboard, you could either throw it out, or if you know someone that has a broken Ion, maybe replace it. These motherboards are still quite useful for doing diagnostic stuff, and just in case something were to go wrong, you might want to have a backup motherboard. Or you could just sell it on eBay for a couple $100. I'm going to put that on the floor next to it. Next, it's time to pop out the old I/O shield, which is this part right back here. To do this, simply just give it a lot of force with your fingers and it should pop out. You can put this back with the old motherboard. Next, grab your new I/O shield. What you're going to do with this is kind of line it up with the back and give it firm pushes around the edge. You will know that it's clicked in by some very audible metal clicking noises. That's not how it should sound like. I usually like to start in the corners, on the bottom, and then just push up, making sure to get it properly secured and flush with the back. Now that the new I/O shield is in, it's time to pop in the new motherboard. Locate the I/O on the back of your new motherboard. Move all the cables out and very carefully slide it back into position, making sure to align the rear panel connectors with the new I/O shield that you just put in. Perfect. Just spend a minute making sure everything is properly lined up, including the screw holes in the bottom. From there, you can go ahead and take your motherboard screws and start putting them back. I like to start with this back one right here, just lifting the motherboard up a little bit, putting that screw in, and then go ahead and do the rest of them. Once you've done that, it's time to put back in the card. Start by placing the two standoffs right in here. Then screw in the card. Take the USB cable that was off the card and hook it right into either FP1 USB or FP2 USB. These are marked by silver indicators on the motherboard. Either one works. Just line up the pins. You will see the bottom half of the connector only has 4. Do not do that. Put the connector in the row with 5 connectors and make sure that the end of the connector with the little arrow is on that 5th connector. From there, also go ahead and take the USB connector off the front panel and plug it into whatever USB port you did not use. From there, you can go ahead and put the card back in, screw in everything, and plug back in the serial type connector, the 2 light connectors, and the Molex power connector, and one of those USB cables that you just plugged into the motherboard. Now, after putting back in the card, it's time to plug in the CPU power cable. Make sure it's oriented correctly. Those should only go in one way. And push it until you hear the click. Now, take the motherboard power connector and place it in. You might have to end up turning it around, so just bend it in whatever way it naturally wants to bend around. And put it in. You can see it doesn't want to go in that way, but it can twist under and then plug in. Put it in, make sure that it's, secure. Do not worry about the red SATA cable that was coming off the old hard drive. That does not matter. Now, here is the part that heavily varies on your model. If you have one of these older 1 VGA and dual DVI graphics cards, like ones like I have, you will notice that if you try to slide this top case on it, it'll not go on fully. For this, you're going to have to cut some metal. I don't know about the dual DVI connector ones because I haven't done this modification on one. But what you're going to have to do is I just used some garden shears because it's what I had. But you're just going to cut this top piece off. Definitely a little DIY-like, but it's part of the process. Now, if you have one of the video card versions I have, and you just don't want a hole back there, just use a little bit of electrical tape, or if you have a 3D printer, you can 3D print some plastic to go back there. From there, you will want to put back on the top case with the part that I mentioned cut out. And you'll see it should just slide on. And make sure it also doesn't hit the CPU fan. Just spin it around a little bit and make sure you don't hear any plastic and metal coming together. Face panel time. First, take that second USB connector that is coming off the motherboard that you plugged in a little while ago and plug it into the USB connector on the front panel that goes right there. From there, also go ahead and plug in the Molex to front panel connector. Now, the last connector you will have to put back on is the power button. Find the other non-USB header that has Sharpie arrows. You can see it's right where my pointer finger is. Making sure that the colored wires are on the top facing away from you and towards the DMX card, put it onto the header. Making sure that all 8 pins go in. You'll see a 9th pin to the left. Do not worry about that. From there, just line up your faceplate to go back on. And make sure to screw back on the grounding connector. Now, before I screw everything together, I always just like to plug it into the back and quickly turn it on and make sure that the screen lights up and that you can output to DMX. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and put all the screws in. Congrats! You have now modified your Ion from the Windows XP version to the Windows 7 version and can now run the latest software.